Good afternoon and welcome to this American Dental Association and CAQH webinar, the ADA and CAQH collaboration, simplifying their credentialing process for dentists. My name is Karen Waller. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications here at CAQH, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to review some housekeeping details for all those listening today. Today's session is being recorded, and you will have access to the on-demand webinar that you can share with others at your organization. Your phones will be muted throughout the webinar today, so all questions should be submitted online. Simply ask your question at any time throughout the session by typing your question into the right-hand side of the GoToWebinar panel. We will address your questions at the end of today's sessions. Now, I'd like to introduce today's presenters. They are Krishna Aravadmuthan, who is the Director at the Center for Dental Benefits, Coding and Quality at the ADA Practice Institute. Soren Davis, who is Managing Director of Industry Relations at CAQH, and Steve Slayton, Director of Product Management at CAQH. Now, I'll turn the presentation over to Krishna.
Thank you, Karen. So we'll start the presentation today with an overview of the agenda. This is Krishna from the American Dental Association, and I will begin by talking to you about the challenges that dentists and plans face with credentialing, the reason why and where the ADA is in terms of the ADA-CAQH Strategic Alliance, what we are doing to promote the solution to dentists. I will then be followed by Soren, who will talk a little bit about CAQH itself, and then by Steve, who will give you more information on how the solution works and provide a quick demo into the ProView solution. They'll then circle back to talk a little bit about other use cases for the ProView data, including provider directories. With that, let's get started. Dentists and their staff want to devote their day to their patients, yet they're spending more and more of their time on administrative back office tasks. We hear this all the time at the ADA. But then, given the number of carriers, ever-increasing policies, and more dentists participating in network, administrative burden is only increasing. So at the ADA, we started thinking about how can we help dental offices to achieve administrative simplification. We all know that dentists need to submit their data to payers to get paid, and payers need dentist data to keep up their network. However, both the dentists and the carriers have noted that this process has become really, really cumbersome for both sides. So simplifying the process of credentialing, one part of achieving this broader theme of administrative simplification, is something that the ADA really wants to tackle for its members. So within the credentialing process itself, the data collection part is reported to be the biggest pain point. So to address this, in an ideal state, the ADA wanted a data collection solution that could streamline this process, something that was secure, something that was digital, something that a provider could go in, finish, and fill in all their paperwork, and that same set of paperwork could then be submitted to multiple payers, something where the solution could become industry standard. So after quite a bit of investigation, the ADA formed a strategic alliance with CAQH. We launched this joint solution last October in 2017 at the ADA's annual meeting. CAQH is well known and respected in the broader healthcare arena. Several multi-line carriers already look to CAQH for their credentialing data. Their form itself is a standard in many states. As we looked further into this collaboration as a non-for-profit entity, their aim of streamlining the business of healthcare was well aligned with what the ADA wanted to achieve. Their online portal enables dentists to enter their professional information one time in an easy-to-use digital platform, helping reduce redundant paperwork. This technology is free for dentists, allowing them to share their information with the participating organizations that they choose. So what the ADA brings to this alliance is our power to market and communicate to dentists. our goal is to increase the number of completed, ready-to-use, attested profiles within CAQH. So we have a number of different marketing strategies that we are employing since our launch in 2017. This includes our broader marketing to our membership and through all the other stakeholders that we have a relationship with. For example, we're tapping into our tripartite structure. We have our state dental association and the local societies. We have been able to communicate this alliance to all our partners, and they are then taking the information back to the members as well. Though through the service, we are showcasing the value of the ADA both to members and non-members. Not only is the service free for members of the ADA, the service is also free for non-members and open to non-members with the same level of service from the ADA. We have relationships as soon as a student enters dental school. One myth that is often thought about is that the ADA only has information for members. That is really not true. The ADA's data warehouse houses information on every dentist right from the time that they sit for their dental school exams. So this information then can get pre-populated into the CAQH ProView system, making it easier for the dentist when they log in that some of the fields are already complete, and then they can move on to complete the rest of the application. The login process itself is very simple. They can use their ada.org password and username. Again, every person who sits for a dental school exam has an ADA number, which can be used to log into the system. Our call center is also equipped to handle the basic calls on the solution. We work with the CAQH customer service to make sure the experience for the dentist using the solution is optimum. There are a number of dentists working in groups, so in 2018, we're looking to streamline the process for practice managers to enable them to be able to assist all the dentists in their offices. ProView has the capability for bulk upload of some data by practice managers that can be useful when office managers are trying to assist their dentists. The system itself generates automatic reminders to help dentists to stay up to date on their data and attest every 120 days so that their file is ready for use by any payer who's seeking this information. So overall, we believe that the system satisfies what we were looking for as we walked into this industry. So circling back to the theme of administrative simplification, really the best value that we can give to both sides, be it the dentists or the payers, is if all the dentists use the system to put their data in, and then if all the payers use this as their one-stop shop to receive the data. So that really is the goal for the ADA, and we are doing everything we can to move this forward to help our members and all dentists reduce their burden with paperwork. So with that was an overview of the ADA's partnership with CAQH. I will now look to Soren to move on to talk a little bit about CAQH and how the ProView system itself works.
CAQH is a nonprofit alliance focused on streamlining the business processes in healthcare to reduce the administrative burden on health plans, providers, and their patients. As a nonprofit alliance, 12 health plans and 2 related organizations form our board and help guide CAQH as it develops its solutions. All of its solutions are available to all industry players, and the board acts as a guiding entity to help CAQH focus on those initiatives that are critical to streamlining administrative processes in a collaborative and transparent fashion. Next slide, please. CAQH initiatives are divided into 3 types of efforts. One is CAQH Core, which develops operating rules that enable the electronic business transactions between payers, providers, and vendors. CAQH Solutions are technology-based industry-wide utilities that address some of the most pressing challenges in healthcare relating to provider and member data. and CAQH Explorations, which encourages and encompasses research efforts such as the annual CAQH Index, which measures industry adoption of electronic business transactions. Next slide, please. As I said, many of our industry solutions address the industry challenges of provider data. CAQH ProView, which we'll get into greater detail later on in the presentation, is one such solution. Also, DirectAssure, which improves the accuracy of provider directories. It does so by integrating with CAQH ProView, making it easy for providers to update their practice data in one place for multiple plans, and allows them to use an already established workflow that has been embedded in their processes for many years. Verified has transformed primary source verification for credentialing, automating it so that it is faster, with higher data quality, and at a lower cost. Like DirectAssure, it also leverages ProView to provide a seamless experience for all users. Sanctions Track provides ongoing monitor of provider disciplinary actions at a national level. And Enroll Hub, which increases provider participation in EFT and ERA, enabling them to use one online application for supplying EFT, ER information and distributing that information to multiple participating plans. Last is COB Smart, which addresses the industry challenges of members with overlapping benefits so that claims are paid correctly the first time.
Okay. Some of the key benefits for ProView and for dentists specifically, it's free to dentists to whether you're ADA member or not. It is a single provider profile that the dentists control and share with authorized plans. They will always have visibility as to who is asking for their data, and they can control the release of that data. It's a web-based system. This has always been at the heart of what we do. The focus here, as compared to paper, is that it is an interview-style workflow. They're not actually filling out a paper form online, but rather an interview-style process where the system will ask related questions based on prior answers, flags errors as they're made, incomplete information so that the provider can immediately correct problems instead of with a paper process being potentially pinged months later with your form is incomplete, you need to do something else. We also capture, in addition to the electronic data they input, documents which can be imaged and uploaded, and it's basically eliminating the whole paper process. That's the focus of what CAQH is doing. The system is available 24/7 to the providers, and they can update, and in fact are encouraged to update any time that they have changes, because those changes then are immediately made available to the participating parties electronically. Practice managers also have a module and have an ability to work within ProView to manage multiple locations and multiple dentists within the locations so that they can operate their businesses efficiently. And like ADA, dentists have support via phone and live chat to answer any questions around the use of the system. Next slide, please. Okay, from a plan perspective, obviously, you're getting the most current and complete up-to-date self-reported and attested information from the provider. It's consistent. Everybody's getting the same information, so errors, some won't have different data than others. It's secure electronic exchange. It's a roster process, and Steve will walk through some of the details of how all of this works in a moment. The participating organizations can access their data anytime, both online through a portal and also through electronic data feeds. I'm not going to read through the list. Steve is going to work through some of it. There is also dedicated client support and account management support on this, and CAQH has a robust marketing and outreach program to encourage providers to participate as well. Next slide, please. To give you a sense of who is already participating in this in the dental community, this is a list of current dental clients, and we have a lot of folks now who have been reaching out to us as a result of this alliance, and our business development operation has been on overdrive doing customized webinars and sessions with prospective clients. So this list is growing weekly, it appears. Next slide, please. I believe this is Steve, where you can now take over. So I'd like Steve Slayton to walk you folks through the details of ProView.
Thank you, Soren, and thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. So what I would like to start out by doing is going through a couple of slides just to get you oriented on how the users of ProView use the system and what the sort of the high-level steps that each of those parties do and the timing and sequence of them. And then I'll take you through several slides that click down one or two levels into the specific screens that a dentist would see as they go in to perform their activities. So this first slide illustrates sort of the typical historical use of CAQH ProView. And it actually starts in the upper right-hand corner where you see participating organizations. So these have typically been either health plans or dental plans. And the process typically starts by a plan submitting what we call a roster into the ProView system. And the roster is simply a list of the dentists that you wish to get information on. After that happens, we will take that roster. We'll see if the dentist has an existing profile in the system and notify them that you would wish to get their information. If we don't have an existing profile in there, we will create basically a shell of an account to get them started. And then we'll jump down to the bottom left-hand corner where you see that there's a notification that goes out to the dentist that says your dental plan would like you to create your profile in ProView and give them permission to access that information. Then sort of moving counterclockwise to the upper left, the dentist would log in, complete their profile, attest to the accuracy of that information, and then that information would be sent back to the dental plan via what we call an extract. Okay, so in the middle of the workflow here, you'll see a pretty high-level list of the types of information that a dentist would provide as part of his or her profile. Now, there is also a slightly different use case in which the provider has the ability to come in and create a profile prior to being requested by a dental plan. So we call that self-registration. So if you're a brand new dentist and you're not in network with any dental plan just yet, you can go in and self-register and enter all your information and attest to it so that it's already available when a plan wants to subscribe and receive your information. Okay, so that's historically how it's worked. Let's go to the next slide now, which shows the new workflow and the improvements that we've made working with ADA. And so the good news here is that the dentist's life just got much easier, right? Because we did two things for them. We've simplified the account creation and user access part of that. And we've also reduced the amount of data that a user has to type into ProView the first time they come in to create their profile. So two things, right? So it's easier to access the system, and there's less data that you have to enter. So easier for the dentist. So simply put, the new users, new dentists come in through the ADA. They, as Soren mentioned earlier, there's a single sign-on. So we worked with ADA to either match the ADA profile up to the CAQH profile and user account. And then we pre-populate any data that's in their ADA profile into their ProView profile. And then even better is that this integration is two ways. So if once that data is received from the ADA, if a user comes back in a dentist comes back in at a later time and modifies some of that data, we have a two-way integration that will send that modified data back to their ADA profile so that the two systems always stay in sync. Okay, so good stuff. All right, let's move into the next slide then. All right, so there are two ways that, two spots that a dentist can come in and begin this process. So the first is a dedicated web page that we've created called ada.org Go Digital. And so the user could come in here and get started from that point of view, and they use their existing ADA credentials, or their user credentials to be clear, username and password, to access the system. Next slide, please. The other way that they can begin the process is to go in through their ADA login page. And so this slide shows what that currently looks like. And they, again, can use their same username and password to begin the process there. All right, once they've done that, once they've logged in through either one of these places, they'll be taken to their My ADA profile page. And this is a page that most of them are familiar with. It's sort of a multi-function page. You can see here at the bottom there are a number of activities that in areas that they can go into to update education, take training, update their, put in service requests, print cards, and things like that. The key area for the purposes of this discussion is really the My Credentials box. And so to get started on the process, they would click that My Credentials box. That then takes them to another page to help them get started and get prepared. And so this page really is a preparation page. And you can see it describes some helpful hints of information that they need to be prepared to enter, and also potentially some documents that they should be prepared to enter information from and upload into the ProView system. So this is something to help them gather what they need before they actually get to ProView. Okay, and then sort of the last step within the ADA domain is a terms of service page. And there are a number of things here. I'm not going to read them all to you and during this slide. There are two important pieces that I would just point out, though. The first is up in the first bullet, the top paragraph there, which basically says that the dentist is giving permission for the ADA to transfer their ADA data over to CAQH ProView. And then I'd also draw your attention down to the third bullet, which points out that that they will designate a dental plan in ProView to send their information to that dental plan. Okay, so those are the two things that people generally are interested in. Okay, next slide. Now, after that, they'll be transferred out of the ADA website domain into the ProView domain. And so we have a nice landing page for the dentists here to give them an idea of what they'll be doing next. So a little explanation of what ProView is. Again, to reiterate that they came here from the ADA site, and then a nice high-level three-step diagram of what they need to do. So once they've had a chance to sort of look that through and get oriented, they simply click Get Started to begin the credentialing, the actually data submission process. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we've worked really hard to make the dentist's life easier to get this information in. And so this next series of screens, I'm going to walk you through and highlight the types of information that comes into ProView from their ADA profile. So it starts out with their personal information, where we'll import their provider type and the type of practice setting, whether it's inpatient or outpatient. There are a couple of specialties that they have choices to choose from on the provider type. And then, of course, their name and other personal information will be populated. Next slide. Okay, then jumping down to their professional IDs, their license state and license number, license type will be populated along with the status and the issue date. In terms of training and education, we'll import and pull over where they graduated from, what country they graduated from, US, Canada, or a foreign school. And then their actual school information will be populated as well. They'll also be able to choose the types of professional training that they participated in. So internships and residencies and where those were performed. And then sort of last but not least is information about their practice setting. So looking on the right side of the page, you'll see their practice locations, and which includes their address and their phone number and their tax ID. And then as they click through the detailed pieces of that, if you look to the left-hand side of the screen, you can see there's a blue set of tabs at the top, and then information on the practice hours are imported into the hours piece of that tab. Okay, and so after they've filled out after they've reviewed the information that's imported and filled in the additional information that's needed to complete their profile, they'll go to get ready to attest, which is where they will basically certify and say the information that I've entered is correct and true to the best of my knowledge. So we give them a nice, easy-to-use screen here that identifies if there are any errors in their profile or any supporting documents that are necessary based on the information that they've entered as well. And so they can simply click on this screen to go back and fix those errors or upload the types of documents that are required. And so as you can see here, if they click View Errors, they go into this screen and have a chance to see what areas are required in order to fix those problems. And so once that's done, the system will tell them you're ready to attest. And kind of the last step in the process is where they'll actually review the agreement again. It'll give the very legal terms of what they're granting permission to do, and basically this is where do the final step that says I'm agreeing to release my information to these plans. And so at that point, they can also download their data summary and download a copy of their state-based application. And then sort of lastly, at the end of that process, they'll be informed that their attestation is completed. We'll also ask them if they want to enroll for electronic payments or remittance at that time as well. If they do, we'll give them an easy way to get over to Enroll Hub and begin that process. And Enroll Hub, as you remember, is Soren mentioned earlier, is our CAQH solution for completing that process. And so we would encourage you also, this is the paid commercial part of this presentation, we'd encourage you also, if you're set up to complete electronic payments, take a look at Enroll Hub, and we'd be happy to have someone contact you with that as well. We have a large and growing number of dental plans who are using Enroll Hub also. And we have 70,000 dentists who are already enrolled in using Enroll Hub. So it's similar to ProView in that it's a one-to-many solution. If a dentist comes in and creates their profile, they can submit that information and request electronic payments to multiple plans. So it's been very successful also and popular within the dental provider community. Okay, so that sort of wraps up our tour of ProView. In conclusion, I wanted to just talk for a minute about other uses for the provider data in ProView. Soren mentioned earlier in the presentation that we have built additional functionality on top of ProView that's really kind of in line with the existing use of ProView. And so the providers actually love it because they're used to coming in and reattesting to their data on a regular basis. We've taken that provider engagement and leveraged it and leveraged the information that we have inside of ProView to help with updating provider directories. And so the dentist practice data also can help improve those directories through the use of what we call Direct Assure. It integrates seamlessly as part of the review and profile updating process. And the way it works is that once every 90 days, we'll go out and we'll do outreach to the dentists who are requested from each of your plans to remind them that they need to log into ProView and update their data. We made it easy for them by giving them a very tailored snapshot of what will be presented in the directory. So as we went through the ProView, the full profile, you can see that there's a lot of information that they're required to enter to complete the credentialing process. There's a smaller subset of that information, of course, that's used specifically within the directory. And so we give them a very easy, concise view of just that subset of data. And that's presented in our provider directory snapshot within ProView. And then once they attest, we'll send you a smaller, concise version of just the directory data as well, plus a compliance report that tells you who we have successfully been able to contact during that quarter and who we could not, who we were unsuccessful in contacting for whatever reason. Perhaps they've moved or they have a bad email address or a bad phone number. We'll let you know that so that you can perform that outreach on your own and follow up as requested. Okay, so that sort of concludes our overall discussion of how the integration works and how ProView works, and I think it's time now for questions.
Thank you, Steve. So again, as Steve noted, it's time for questions. Again, please submit your questions by simply writing them in the questions section of the panel on the right-hand side of your screen. We've had a couple of questions about something that I said in the beginning. Yes, we will be sending all the individuals who registered for this webinar a electronic copy of the webinar so that you can share it, a recording that you can share with your other colleagues. So look for that early next week. So we will try to answer all the questions we can. If there's some that we can't answer that are specific to ADA, we promise to be able to get answers back to you as soon as possible. So the first question is to Steve. Is the application within CAQH ProView the same or a different application for dentists?
Right. So today, the application is the same as the standard application in ProView. ProView is used by many different types of participating organizations. So dental plans, health plans, behavioral health, vision. And so the application now, because it's an industry-wide utility that has a number of different types of organizations who consume that data, is really kind of the superset of information that could be needed. And we have many provider types who are entering information as well. And so we've worked long and hard over the last 15 years to try to build kind of a universal application. As we move forward, we'll be working with the ADA to take a look specifically at the dental application to see if there are ways that we can streamline this and make it more specific to dentists themselves. And so we're putting together those plans right now to make that happen.
And let me jump in a little to clarify one additional point, because ADA looked very carefully at the entire data set and the process within ProView, and they compared it with their earlier efforts in the space. And interestingly, a lot of the data, the vast majority, was duplicative or was matched with what they were originally collecting. So there had been some concerns around, this is a medical-centric solution. Are there too many unnecessary questions being asked of dentists that are not applicable? So ADA has done a deep dive on that, and the vast majority are the same. So it isn't extra or more work. On top of that, the single biggest barrier, as Steve referenced earlier, is the amount of work a new dentist or any new provider would typically do. What we've actually done with the data import from ADA, and this doesn't actually exist on the medical side. CAQH is looking to see how this might be usable for the whole medical community, but the dental community we've leapfrogged by allowing the importation of all of this data that otherwise would have had to be rekeyed. So the experience for the dentist right now in ProView is actually more streamlined and efficient than it would be for the medical provider. Go ahead.
Thank you. So a question, so just to be clear, you mentioned sending the recording, but will we specifically be sent the deck? And would we have intellectual property rights to use the deck as is and then copy and paste those slides into our deck? And I can answer that question. We're happy to send the slide deck along to you, so no problem there. Happy to let you use our slides. It is copyright CAQH, so if you do use this information, all we ask is that you attribute it to our respective organizations. And note that on your slides, but otherwise, we're happy to have you use that information. Next question for Steve. When a plan starts the process and sends their roster, what data fields are required and in what format?
Right. So the answer is, if there is a new provider that you are adding to your roster, there are a few key fields that need to be included for that provider. And those are NPI number, DEA, license state, and license number, or UPIN. And you have to have at least one of those so we can add that provider. There are a number of other fields that can be included as well that will help us in the matching process and provide information about that provider. We have a user guide that walks through that in detail to explain exactly how that happens and what needs to be provided.
Another question to Steve. How long does it take on average for a dentist to fill out the CAQH application?
So what we found on average is that it takes roughly around an hour the first time to get your profile completed. And that's to basically, type in the data and upload your supporting documents. It seems to be, from the feedback we've gotten, a reasonable amount of time. Users have indicated this is, they feel that this is worth the investment to make, particularly compared to the amount of time that they would have to spend filling out a paper form and having to do that multiple times for each of the dental plans that they're participating with. So again, because ProView is a one-to-many process, the big benefit here is that you enter this information in once electronically, which is comparable to the time it would take to fill out the paper form, but you can submit this to multiple plans. And so you eliminate a lot of the redundancy of having to fill out multiple forms and sending them multiple times.
Thank you, Steve. And actually, a question that follows up very nicely to that is, must the dentist specify the specific plans or designate each plan, or is it possible for them to sort of specify all dental plans at one time who want their information?
Yes, great, good question. The dentist. So one of our key sort of principles and philosophies at CAQH is that the dentist or other provider is always completely in control of their data. So they can choose to do what we call a global authorization, which means that any plan who requests the information can receive it, or they can go and authorize only specific dental plans to receive that information. What we found over time is that well over 90% of the providers do a global authorization. So they seem to just like that capability, and makes it nice and easy and quick for them to get that information as they move in and out of networks.
Great. Steve? Soren, two questions for you that are related. Can a dentist who isn't an ADA member sign on to this system through the ADA portal? And where does the ADA data come from? Does the dentist have to enter this information into the ADA website?
Okay, so for the first part, this is a dentist does not have to be an ADA member to go and to use this process. ADA has, I believe, somewhere around 67%, the high 60s% of all dentists as members. There's about 206,000 dentists in the United States. 67% or so of them are members, but almost all dentists are in the ADA system because they also transact with the ADA to get all sorts of to buy their code books and a variety of things. Plus, all new dentists entering have an ADA account because of the dental school connections, and they're all set up with accounts and use those accounts as they come out. So ADA is touching everyone in that respect, and it was interesting to note because it was an education for me as well as to how it worked. The second part of the question is that typically dentists have already entered a lot of the data that's being ported over: practice location information, contact information, identifiers, in order to transact with the ADA for its normal business processes. So it's that data that's coming over. So the dentist isn't being required to enter what they would have otherwise had to enter in ProView, in ADA, to get it transferred over. Obviously, if there's missing data in ADA, that wouldn't transfer over, and then within ProView, that dentist would be entering the data. The system has flags for required data, conditionally required data, or optional data, depending on the particular data element and how it's needed in the process for credentialing. Okay.
Thank you, Soren. Question for Steve. How much does this cost a plan to participate?
Sure. So the system is priced based on the number of dentists that you roster, and it's an annual subscription fee. So it's really sort of a pay-as-you-go, right? You depending on which dentist you need information on in any given year, you can send us those. And it's a small fee. We'd be happy to have folks from our business development team to follow up with you on that. But basically, it's a few dollars per dentist.
And let me just to help clarify just a little bit. The notion here is it's a subscription. It's annual. You get 12 months of unlimited data. Whatever the provider does, all the reporting, everything is included in it. It is only charged on a provider that is complete and current in the system. So the typical flow for a client would be, let's say they've got a roster of 1,000 dentists that they do business with, that it's in their network, that they need data on to credential. You would provide that roster to CAQH. CAQH would match up those dentists against what's already in the system, report back to the client, here are all the matches we have for you and the status of those matches. The ones that are complete and current, if you're a client, will trigger the subscription fee charge, and I can tell you that that runs $4.50 per dentist, DMD, DDS. And that gets you the full data set for 12 months and all the updates. So if you have that 1,000, let's say, half of them are complete, you would be charged for 500. We track the anniversary dates of that. You have access, and then the next 12 months later, if those dentists are still on your roster, you would be billed another 12-month subscription fee for that provider. It's strictly, though, as Steve said, per individual provider on your roster.
Thank you, Soren. We received a question about screenshots or more information on for the practice managers. I can answer that. We have a very detailed practice manager guide, and we will send that directly to the person who asked the question, along with a link to people to let them know where that guide is. We don't have slides here today on those sections, but that information is available in a detailed guide. And there's also a brief video on how to do that. So we'll send that information to you. So we're almost ready at the time. A lovely question. If my plan is interested, what is the next step? We have an email address at sales@caqh.org. Please feel free to send an email there, and someone will get back in touch with you immediately, talk about the specific needs of your plan and how best to work with you. A question, what's the process time? This would be for Steve. What's the process time once a dentist completes their application?
Sure. So one of the advantages of being an electronic system is that the process time is actually very quick. Typically, if the supporting documents are uploaded, we'll review them to make sure that they're valid and that they match the information that was typed in. But typically, the information would be available to a plan the next day.
So thank you. We're coming to the end of our webinar today. As a reminder, early next week, you're going to receive a copy of both the slide deck and the recorded webinar today. Please, we also invite you to visit our website at www.caqhproview.org. That will take you right to the ProView section. And on the left-hand side of that page is a lot of information that applies specifically to dentists and dental plans. So with a lot of additional information than what you heard today, so we invite you to visit that as well. And again, if you are interested in having someone from our team contact you directly and talk to you more specifically about your plan's needs, please contact us. Just send an email to sales@caqh.org. Again, thank you so much for being with us today. And on behalf of everyone here at CAQH, we wish you happy holidays. Thank you.